We are on.
As soon as you call the meeting to order.
Okay, tonight is January 26th, 2023 at 7 o'clock. And we are going to call this meeting of the Finance Committee, regular meeting of the Finance Committee to order. And I see a few people online. So I'll just do a quick roll call. Ray Anders. I think he'll be here. Suresh? No. Peggy Briggs is here. Kathy Kuklo is traveling. Eric Dahlberg is also not going to be here. John?
Here.
Careful. Greg? I think he was going to be about half an hour late. Is that Greg? Amherst is not coming, won't be here tonight. Don?
Here.
Here. Lindsay is here. Dee is here.
Here.
Bear Sharp?
Here.
Christine?
Here.
Brian?
Brian cannot come.
He cannot?
Sorry?
Oh, there's Ray. Ray, you're here. And Lois.
Here.
Present. Okay. So good. We have a quorum. So
9, right?
Need 8.
Okay, good.
yeah, I've got Ray.
We got it.
Yeah, we got
Yeah,
it.
we got 8. We're good.
Okay. So the first item on the agenda is any follow-up from the special town meeting. That was more of a placeholder in case something failed at town meeting.
Nothing failed.
Nothing, well done. Every article passed. Whether some folks consider that a failure, I'll let sit. But yes, every article passed overwhelmingly at town meeting. So
Peggy,
yes,
maybe I'm counting wrong. Do we have only 7 people present?
we have Ray.
No, we have 9.
7. No, we now have Ray's 8. Okay, we now have a quorum with Ray there. Okay.
Peggy,
All right.
Yeah, we've got.
John, Dawn,
No.
Lindsay, Dee, Parashar, Christine.
Oh, and Eric is here now too. Eric Dahlberg is here.
Just joined. Hey, everybody.
Eric's
Hi.
here.
Okay, great. I'm sorry. I just
1, 2, 3, 4.
wasn't sure we had a quorum, but we do. So that's great.
Okay, yeah. Thank you, Lois, for doing an excellent job.
Who's doing minutes? Minutes.
Yes, we need a scribe. So I'll look up to the screen for that.
Oh, I see Ray leaning back to hold Ray's hand.
Yeah, Ray and Eric are jockeying. Eric's, anyone in the room want to do it? I usually, hit up the folks that in the comfort of their own home.
Yeah, I can do it. Can you hear me?
Yes, thank you, Ray. We appreciate that.
Okay.
Okay,
I hope you appreciate the results as well.
What?
So we hope we appreciate the results.
Yeah.
They will be appreciated, Ray. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Lois. Okay, 1.
Okay, so a few things, and I'm not sure how much discussion we were going to have on this, but on the middle school, is there information, and I'm going to look to Gail, Bob, on the use of the stabilization fund? Or is that something the select board will be working out? Or
I would assume it's a future discussion.
okay. And how much is in that stabilization fund? About 5?
3.
Oh,
3.5.
Yeah.
And were we going to put more into it this year?
Trying to.
Yeah.
I don't think I saw an article on it.
No, there is.
Oh, there is?
There is, yeah, there is. Yep.
See, that
750K.
just shows you that we haven't seen the warrant.
How much, 150?
750.
750, okay,
Okay.
I mean, that could be modified down, but yeah.
okay.
Okay, so, and information on the debt plan. We heard at town meeting for the middle school that we're considering a 30-year level payment plan. Is that still what we're,
I think right now,
the expectation?
voters approved the 7.2 million, I think there's 98 odd million left to issue.
Mhm.
So as soon as the bids come in and there's a legitimate project, if you will, we were just discussing today, we probably plan to borrow 50 million this spring.
You need a microphone.
spring?
Yeah,
So once we have the actual bids and know how much it is and the actual cash flow, we'll be able to determine the timing but it would be after town meeting sometime this week.
Okay,
And I
so,
think the bids are due April-ish, so. once we
so you'll
have
be
all
looking
these
at the bond issuance and the expectation on interest rates and figuring out whether we want to borrow it all right now or hope the interest rates are going down or not borrow 100 million if we only have to borrow 50 and that sort of thing.
I think, given that we went to the select board and discussed issuing half, that unless they and we got together and said differently, that's what we borrow half, no matter what.
Okay,
That's like definitely the current plan would not be to borrow all of it.
Did you discuss the terms as well?
Yeah.
And what was the term?
30-year level debt was the
Okay.
preferred method.
Okay.
level debt or level payment?
Level debt payment, same thing. It's not level principal.
That's what I meant.
Yeah.
Okay. The third thing I had on here was one thing. Welcome. Sure. One thing that came up at town meeting was whether or not the community preservation funds could be used for outdoor playing fields and such. So since I haven't seen the warrant, we'll, I guess, just keep an eye on that, see if that comes to CPC. It would have to be either next year or an outside application, outside the schedule, because we've had the applications and that wasn't one of them.
That's correct.
So it's not in the article. It is my understanding that the schools put forth an article for 1.8 million, a new article, another 1.8 million for funding of schools and fields and landscaping. Hey, Greg,
Where is that? Is that,
it's on the warrant,
it's on the warrant?
on the regular annual town meeting warrant,
Okay, it's a separate article.
over and above the 7.2 that we just voted on. Is that
Okay, 1.8?
1.8?
Specifically for the fields is what it's for.
Yes,
And
Fields
two
and
things, fields and the other.
fields and landscaping.
Fields and landscaping.
If the bids come in above the 110 that's currently approved. So again, it's like another contingent article, if you will. But we'll obviously have a discussion about that as we go through the entire warrant and determine affirmative action, recommending affirmative or no action.
Just as an FYI,
Yes,
you cannot go to the CPC for landscaping.
Good.
It's only for fields, it's recreation,
recreation,
So that's most of it. It's
outdoor recreation.
yeah,
So it's 1.5 million for field, so it's the majority of what they're asking for.
Okay,
So recreation for whose benefit?
well,
it's just a category, recreation. It's outdoor
We
recreation,
use it for parks and fields in the town.
but it has to be fields, not landscape related. It's genuine fields, basketball courts, that sort of thing, baseball diamonds, that sort of thing.
and we did use that source of funding for the white fields up at the high school. There was CPC money for that,
Yes, there was.
a lot of it.
For the football field, another field.
The two
playing
upper, the
field,
brand new
upper
upper
ones.
fields, the white fields, they're called.
Is
So
that-
there was a discussion this morning at the building committee about if they were to pursue that, who's going to do it? So in the case where it was done for the high school, Peggy or Dee, do you know who sponsored the item at CPC? Was it the school committee? Was it the school? Because the school was
No,
already built.
No, it was a separate organization. It preceded my coming onto the CPC. But the fellow who was the one, John, his wife was on the board for the middle school or something. Who?
Yes.
Boynton.
Yes.
Boynton. He was the one who shepherded the funding because he was also getting outside funding.
He
And
shepherded
came-
the private funding and
That's
donations.
correct, but he also was the one who approached
Your
the,
question is who filed the application to Community Preservation
Right,
Committee?
right.
Yeah.
So it sounds like it was a private citizen.
yes, it was.
Yeah.
Yes, it was, and they were responsible. And if I remember correctly, the amount was around 900,000 at the time. They came back a subsequent time when I was on the CPC, and the field that is across from the front of the building, not the soccer fields, but on the other side, it's like a practice field. That was one that we contributed funding for as well.
Okay.
That might be worth double checking, because it might have been the school committee or the board of selectmen that filed, or the
Does it
town.
matter
He
for
was
us?
the one that
It
came
doesn't,
to the
except
meeting.
someone's got to do it. It's, you know,
Not our responsibility. Can
Yeah.
we keep going?
No.
Yeah,
well, but I want somebody to do it, right? It's an offset.
I
right?
understand,
So-
but look,
yeah.
I mean,
It's also worth checking, as I read the enabling legislation, it prohibits those funds to be used for artificial turf. It's for preservation of natural spaces.
That might be
You are-
new.
that, now in the CPC regs?
Yes,
All right,
Is that new?
I'll see if I can.
I bet
Figure
if
that's,
you can find that up there.
I bet that's new.
The fields are not
I can
artificial
also-
turf. They're not
no,
intended to be
well, the-
artificial.
No, but the white fields are.
Oh, okay, well.
Yeah, the football
The ones I'm
fields.
referring to, the
Oh, okay.
two upper fields
Anything-
by,
Okay.
Anything they're doing now is not. I can check with the CPC contact to find out amounts and who was the, if you want. Do you want that information?
I just think it's sort of on our watch list.
Okay.
I have a quick question on that. If you're trying to find that out, can you find out, was that done with a private-public partnership, or was it using prevailing wage, or was it done right by private
They had
without
to
going
be
through
in-
the process?
I know that they had to be in compliance, whatever the state regulations
Okay.
were when they were building the field. That's why they don't have any, I believe that's why they don't have any Johns down at the football field, because they would, the number of stalls they needed to have in there was just like 40 or something. They just, so that's why it hasn't, that building they were gonna have hasn't been built.
Because like the BD Center was done without going through the public procurement process. So that's the reason I bring it up,
I'll try to check into that
Yeah.
in terms of all their funding.
Okay, well, it might be worth just kind of putting together a little history on that, so when it comes to us, we're up to speed. The other articles, also it's special town meeting, all passed. Most of those there were some funds moving around for affordable housing within CPC, and a couple of home rule petitions were refiled, were agreed to refile for, surtax or a real estate transfer tax and whatnot, so that is that. We can move on to annual town meeting.
Yeah, so on annual town meeting, there's 46 articles, 31 of which look like they'll come to one of our FinCom hearings. So we have, and most of them are the same ones we've seen before. So they're the town budget, the school budget, Minuteman assessment, all the enterprise funds have a series of things that they do. But within enterprise funds is also a new one this time. So there's $13 million in debt, so related
This is
to
the-
solar, right? So the solar, right? So solar array and battery, it will be located at the middle school. It is not tied to the middle school, if you will. So it's part of CMLP. So this is a CMLP project. It's not included in the cost of the school. So it's a regular solar project for the town that the ratepayers, I assume, would be paying for. It doesn't say much on the warrant article. So I'm the observer for CMLP. So I asked Kerry, so I haven't been on this committee when we've had debt authorization related to an enterprise fund. So typically, we don't spend a lot of time with enterprise funds because they're not property tax funded. However, this is a general obligation debt of the town, so it goes out as GO debt. So I don't know if it's going to be in our hearing, if we're expected to make a comment on it or not. So I've asked her that question. I don't have an answer yet.
So that's issued by the town as opposed to the light plant?
It's a general obligation of the town, that's my understanding, so I don't know who the issuing body is, yeah.
So typically, the light plant issues its own bonds, and they're
Okay.
paid back by the
By the ratepayers,
ratepayers.
but I think it's still a general obligation, so it could be, so I don't know the answer, but it's it'll be in our FinCom hearing.
Yes, it will.
Yeah, so
In one of our FinCom.
in one of our FinCom hearings, so they didn't have a lot of detail in the makeup of the 13 million, so my question to Kerry is this something that's in our bailiwick, and if it is, then we might want to have them come and have a chat with us before the hearing, so we have a better understanding of what they're asking for and what the makeup is of the, how do you come up with the 13 million, right? Where does it come from? What's the financial support for it? But I don't know if that's
So
going to
where are
work
they
or not.
putting a $13 million solar array at the middle school?
On the roof and in the canopies, they're going to have parking canopies.
Okay.
And the battery storage, I think at the moment, is also intended to be at that location.
Excellent, okay.
Okay, so that's probably a big one, that's an unusual one. We talked about the stabilization fund that's there, the school fields, so we talked about that there could be one there for the 1.8 million. I don't think there was anything else. There are some citizen positions, but they're not going to come to us in our hearings. There's a couple of zoning items, as you might expect. There's the number of zoning items that are in there.
50,000 for the.
Yes, for CPC.
250, Matt.
There will be one citizen petition that will be coming to the finance committee. It's an article that is urging the town to expedite the hiring of a DEI director. And that's going into the finance committee hearing because of it's recommending a hiring that has fiscal impact.
Okay.
Okay.
Having us weigh in on personnel decisions, I'm
not a fan of that.
don't love that idea. I think it's really a select board, but
So
and
do
we
I.
would weigh in on the overall budget. And how that
Agreed.
might
We don't-
affect
we
the
don't-
overall budget,
I agree.
rather than that individual,
I can put in a note and see.
Okay. Yeah, because that,
Otherwise, we'll recommend no action.
that
not
buck
likely
is,
we're going to spend a lot of time on it.
Choice.
we just passed that buck back to you.
Yeah, if he comes with no source of funding, I know what the answer will be.
As I was saying, the ink is drying and it's a matrix that shows which articles are at which.
It was a typo. It was a typo.
Yeah, that's back to the select board hearing.
Okay. Is there anything else that I forgot, Matt, that's new or unusual? I think those are the ones that,
A couple of budgets, but.
yeah, there's a lot of budgets, but we know those, yeah.
Capital spending
Yeah.
articles is-
What about the
But,
appropriate,
the one with the 1.8, initially, it was published as a CCHS capital article or something.
Oh.
And it was, or CPS capital article. And so, the title was misleading and no one understood what it was. And then it's been corrected now to reflect what's being required. So that's why someone might not have noticed when nobody saw just the list of names.
Mm.
And there's also some funding and appropriation for the 250th anniversary celebration.
Yes, there is. I don't know the amount of that. What did that go in at? Do you know what the amount was?
I think they want,
100K.
600K?
I think they want 750 over 3 years, right?
I think they want more than that.
Yeah, I think that's the first tranche.
Yeah, I think they want a couple million. Yeah,
Okay.
There's a bill going
7 point
into,
how much is the street?
the legislature asking for $1 million between us and Lexington for security.
yeah.
Yeah, we don't want to be Charlottesville. Yeah, okay. Enough said on that.
Okay.
One thing that's a little bit on my radar screen is the Beatty Center. That usually goes on the consent calendar.
It's been off the consent calendar, I think, the last 2 years.
Pardon me, Mary?
I'm sorry, it's been on, we pulled it off the
Off.
consent calendar the last 2 years.
Yeah, because it's a challenge.
I'm sorry?
Their budget is a challenge.
Yeah.
Okay, so we might have discussions over that one.
Yep.
We'll have the strategic plan review with them this coming Monday.
Oh, okay.
Well, I hope the swim team will start paying them. But
The, so CML,
that's a really old story.
so CMLP is going to have some sort of a public forum with respect to this solar item that I mentioned.
Okay.
I don't remember the exact date, but it's in February. So maybe we should put a placeholder for our February meeting to invite Brian, I think his last name is Folds, if I say it
Brian
correctly,
Folds, yes.
to come and just give us kind of give us a brief rundown on what's the 13 million, since it's going to be in our hearing.
Is he the chair of the?
He's the chair of the light board.
Okay. That's
Is there anything else that people want to hear something? CPC, we usually have a presentation from CPC as well.
We should have one.
Who's the CPC person?
Diane Proctor.
No, who's on FinCom?
me.
Oh, you, okay. So are there, yeah, so I think it'd be good to, if we, again, work with Peggy to see when the timing works, but I think it'd be good for us to have them in
Okay.
to present on what they're going to ask for. Who else?
Yeah, they do have their list.
so I'm also interested in hearing more about the Stormwater Enterprise Fund. It's a new fund, is my understanding, and my question is, who's funding the fund? What is water, sewer, electric, it's ratepayers, but how do you become a ratepayer for a stormwater fund? What is the stormwater fund going to do? I know what they're gonna do. They're gonna, dig out trenches, they're gonna fix up culverts and et cetera, et cetera. I get that. But who's funding that? The person next door? Every taxpayer in town? Is it really a enterprise fund?
I don't know.
Is that well, I'm not sure it's an enterprise fund, but is that a Carrie and Alan Cathcart or his designates?
Well, I think it's
Bob is
the
the
town
father of it, I think.
finance, our town finance director.
He's the father of
Give
it.
us a quick description of
Sure, I
how,
mean, much of the specifics are to be determined, so it could be this, it could be that. But legally, there do exist, and there are enterprise funds that are stormwater enterprise funds. The most common model in Massachusetts of those has people who own property paying, so pretty equivalent to taxpayers. However, how you price that depends on different communities. One way to do it is a flat fee for all residential, and that's the easiest way. But then, since commercial are very different in sizes, then you do a per square foot of impervious surface for them. So there is a certain amount of GIS work, for instance. And what the fund does is to be determined. You can decide. The one I've seen promised to town meeting to just take care of new regulations coming from the feds that otherwise we're not going to be able to be easily afforded within the general fund. So there's a series where I can't remember where, somewhere like 2 or 3 years into a 7-year process of something called NIPDs, which was, clean water related requirements that the town, mostly through its DPW, would do. So culvert cleanups, and it's just another way basically to fund work and to protect that work from the capital planning process. It's its own fund, just like water, just like sewer, it's its own fund, and this is how this thing is done. But it certainly would be up, the capital budget item is it's $100,000, I think it's from ARPA. And it's to start the process of discussing, what could Concord do, what should it do? I talked to someone who teaches the consultants about this today, and she said she would come here and have a chat, but she didn't want to really set it up for Concord. So Concord would probably end up hiring a consultant. But it'll clearly go to the select board sort of from a policy decision of, here are the options, what do you choose, if anything? But in the capital plan, as it was developed this year, there are a number of items that look like they could qualify for an enterprise fund in very large dollars. So I thought it was important that you discuss it. Because, there's $1 million requests per year that could be related to stormwater. And given that your capital plan is less than 2 million, I didn't see how it was going to be possible, honestly. So it's just another funding mechanism. And as a fellow who sued Reading, who was a good friend of mine for years, to not do it, said it's just another way you're reaching into my pocket. And that's correct, it is. But it also is, depending on how you set it up, a way to protect the fact that this work will be done, because it's important. It has to be done. Some of it's required federally. So you can have employees in the fund, you can have capital work done in the fund. It's really up to the town to decide.
So the 100,000 in 2024 is kind of a feasibility review. Okay.
Right. There's not a lot of stormwater enterprise funds around, but there are some. Started in, I think, Burlington, Vermont.
So what's on the warrant, the regular annual town meeting warrant this year is 100,000 to do a study?
I don't think it is, because
I
I
don't
think it's
see it on the
ARPA.
warrant, right?
Yeah, it's ARPA funded.
It's ARPA funded, yeah.
What?
It's ARPA funded, so they're not
there's
asking for
no-
money, yeah.
There's no
Okay.
article to create or do anything with it. There's funding set aside to explore the potential of doing it.
Okay. Was it on the warrant and got dropped off?
It's ARPA funding, so it's
No.
not.
Okay, I thought I saw somewhere,
In
That-
that capital
that ARPA
document that we
list.
talked about earlier that I put in one of your packets.
Maybe that,
Yeah, it's
Okay.
on that list, yeah.
It would have been on the list with a source of funding in ARPA.
okay, got it.
Peggy, somebody on the finance committee to work with them. I will volunteer. I have a strong background in this topic,
Okay.
so.
Excellent.
Is there any federal money?
Anyone who raises
help?
their hand,
No, I mean, I love this stuff, right? So-
I do too. My question, what kind of got on my radar screen is how, if this applies to 100% of the property in town, how is it not just a tax? But if it applies to every square foot of impervious surface, maybe that's a
There is case law, so it's a very
case law,
popular
right.
question.
case law. Excellent, okay. Anything else on the annual town meeting?
What do you want to do with Minuteman? So we saw them at the hearing, is that it? Do we want to, if they didn't have a number, right? So we didn't get the number from Minuteman. What do you want to do? Do you want to have them in or no?
They will be meeting with us too.
They will? Minuteman's coming to see you? Okay.
We can have them in for 15 minutes.
Yeah, we
but
could
I
have them in
mean,
for a short
Didn't
time.
we
We should
have them
probably,
at the,
we did at the hearing,
did.
but they didn't have their number yet, so we don't know what the
had to do
assessment is.
one slide at midnight and.
Yeah, I don't know if they put their, sometimes they're late on putting their number in. I don't know if that's
When
what's
are
in
they
the
coming
warrant.
in, Matt?
We don't have a precise date, but I was thinking March or early April, close to that.
Later, yeah.
Okay.
Okay, we could do the
Sure.
same
Maybe
thing.
let us know when that, maybe one of us will
Yeah,
decide who's our liaison to that one.
you are to the select board?
What?
No, to Minuteman, to Minuteman, to Minuteman. Brian Taylor.
Brian Taylor. I'm gonna have to give everybody a mea culpa right now. I was looking at the calendar and realized I can't be present at either March 1st or March 7th hearings because my daughter is getting married out of town that weekend. And I didn't notice it when we set up the calendar. So Mr. Vice Chairman has got the two hearings.
Okay.
That's why we have a vice chair. Honestly, I'm looking at this going, oh my God, whoops.
We'll soldier
We
on.
all attend the wedding and we hold a meeting.
That's a good idea,
I thought to
Don.
myself, I thought, I'm only doing this wedding once, but I will have another round of hearings.
Where's the wedding?
It's in Vermont.
We can all make it.
Not a problem.
I can go, I can be there online. Just the house full of guests won't leave me in the other room. Okay. Okay, guideline budget updates?
Yep. So I sent out an email yesterday. The town has met our guidelines, as has the regional high school. CPS is a different story. I'll come to that. But first, we got some news yesterday. Some of you may have heard, but the state informed the town on Monday that the Best Western is going to be used as an emergency shelter. So that may or may not have consequences for the schools to the extent the families come in and the kids need to be either transported back to their home communities or they end up in our schools. A lot of it is unknown. We don't know any more than what I just told you, basically. So the school, I think, was just giving us an early heads up that that has happened. And we should not expect a whole lot of state aid to offset that. So that's just informational background for you guys.
Sure. Quick question. Do you know how, what the capacity is?
100 beds is apparently what
100
Best
beds?
Western has. So
Very sure. Is the state determine that, or was that Patel? Or was-
state, we got a call from the state.
I'm just curious if it was the owner petitions for that, or was
That part I don't know. Unless
Apparently
Matt or
there was
Mary,
a-
do you guys know?
There was a program, I think, prior to Baker to do this, to house homeless families in hotels. And then Baker eliminated it, and now we have a new governor, and they flipped the switch and it's back in. So I don't know who solicited who, but
Yeah, so just FYI. So back to the schools. So they have basically looked at their budget, and there's two sources of places where they, I want to choose my words carefully, where that they can use to bridge the gap. One is very clean and simple. Remember, they have budget for transportation for kids out of district. And that amount is based on rates that are approved by the case collaborative. And so the collaborative ended up approving rates that were lower than what the schools had been assuming would be used. And so that
well, that's good.
$50,000 less spending because of that. So that's good.
Right.
And the other 100,000 comes because what they're gonna do, so let's back up a minute. This is for special ed. You guys can correct me if I've got this wrong. But every year, we get money from the state for special ed. And the best practice, financial management best practice, is to take some of that money and store it for up to 2 years so you can use it in case there's a wild swing outlier in cost the next 2 years, basically. So you always want to bank some of that money, right? It's like 401k.
It's like a stabilization fund.
So what they're proposing to do next year is, instead of, I'm gonna make up numbers right now, but if, instead of banking 300,000, they're gonna bank 200,000. So they'll use that extra 100,000 to again, close the gap for next year. So that's the 150,000. So you go from, we were at 733 is the gap, subtract 150. So you're basically around 583K is the current gap to the guidelines. Absent any changes in state aid revenue, et cetera, that's where they're expecting to stay. So that's kind of where things were. So we had a pretty good conversation because, I talked to many of you in terms of, geez, what do we think? And one of the things I suggested to them, and they agreed, is to actually come in and give us more context. And so I think I sent around an email that basically said that they're going to come in, they'd like to come in and share with us some basic data showing trends in spending, per pupil spending, student to teacher ratio, teacher salaries, in essence, over the last 5 to 6 years, as well as how we compare to other towns, as well as student outcomes. Again, the same thing. Let's get the trends, see how we are, because I told them there's a perception, fairly or unfairly, that over the last 5 to 7 years, we've given probably more to the schools than certainly our guidelines. We've increased them over time. We just voted an extra $7 million for middle school with another potential 1.8 coming. And, folks are saying enough is enough. And I don't know if you guys have heard this, but 2 people, and I relayed this to them, 2 folks told me independently that 2 different realtors have talked about the fact that Concord is becoming a less attractive place to actually sell compared to some of our other communities because of what's going on. Again, perception versus reality. School committee, well, Alexa and Lori thought that the perception was incorrect. I said, well, this is what, I'm not making this up. This is what folks are telling me. And so if you want to come in and talk about why you've got the budget you do, give us a story, right? Change the perception, if you will. And so they've agreed to do this. And we put out a couple dates in February, because our February meeting is actually during the school calendar year.
The vacation.
The vacation, right? So, so that's kind of where we left it. And I said, look, it may very well come to, we may still end up with our guidelines the way they are. And then, of course, town meeting can make a decision as to what they want to do.
Yeah, I mean, the problem
But the information, they asked whether it would sway members. I said, I don't know the answer to that, but at the end of the day, it's important information for the FinCom to have, but also for town residents to have.
Yes, yeah.
Okay,
Right?
so just
So that's
as
what they're.
as a process point.
Yep.
So we have presented a set of we all voted in favor
Yep.
of a guideline number.
Yep.
They are now $500,000 over that.
583.
583, okay. I'm gonna get to a different question in a second. So if they want to come in and make a presentation to us, what they are basically gonna ask us is, will we change our guidelines?
Correct.
Yes.
So that they go to town meeting and we're all on the same
Yeah.
wavelength. and
Yep.
We're voting affirmative, we've given their guideline, we're voting affirmative action. The other alternative is we keep our guideline, but we as a committee will still be voting on that article.
Mhm.
And even if we keep our guideline, individual members of this committee will be able to vote nay or aye on affirmative action or no action.
Yes.
Right.
So, which it gets really, that gets sloppy, because now we've presented a number and some members, if we don't change the guideline, we might have some members in favor and some members against and some abstaining, and it just gets really sloppy. So to the extent that we can have them in and come to an agreement somewhere, somehow.
Well,
Might be preferable, but it might not be where we end up.
Yeah, so
And that has absolutely happened in the past.
Yes, it has.
So I'd like them to
Yes.
come in, present the facts, and then we can make a decision what we want to do. We may stay
Yeah.
where we are, or we may change, but
And this $500-something gap, $1,000 gap that's kind of it. There's no more.
that's what they've said.
So they don't want to come in and discuss other options for filling that gap.
That's not what they
They
want
want
to
to
do.
come in and convince us that we should increase the guideline by 600,000.
But they also recognize,
You hear things about just to finish the special ed, how they're banking 100,000 instead of 200,000. Why not bank nothing this year? So it seems like there are some things that are still
Right.
in their control a little, right?
So
Isn't
that
this
those are,
part-
it's a
Mhm.
legitimate question and we can ask them when they come in,
Okay.
right?
Yeah.
I was not there to negotiate yesterday, I was there to get an
Right.
update.
Just to get.
And then get
got
a
it.
sense of,
So
Right.
the meeting
what's the
will be
best way
to
to go
discuss
forward?
some of those things and
will
see
be,
if they're still on the
everything will
table.
be
Well,
open.
you can bring it up, yeah, right, so we'll see if, but they're not, doesn't sound like they're coming with the intention to negotiate.
It's not, yeah.
Okay, well,
See, I
hopefully
think
that,
Lois
and
will
yeah,
be
I would,
able to
I would,
question.
I would call that a
Oh.
reserve fund. Can
Ray
I,
has a
one,
question.
And Lois
one
had her
second,
hand up
one
as
second.
well.
I would also, and I did, alert Alexa
Yeah.
Anderson, the chair. I don't see any reason why we shouldn't put CCHS on the table. They're at guideline. Why can't we press them down? They're still schools, you know, balance it, maybe press it down on the high school. Like, you know, we gave them a guideline. They're saying, fine, like Yahoo. Why don't we press them down on the high school as well? So don't know
Could.
where that's coming in.
Can
We've
certainly do
got
that.
Ray first. Ray?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Can you hear me? Yeah, okay. It seems that when the budget for the Concord Public Schools is in excess, it's related to, as I understand, it's related to special ed. Are they going to provide some numbers? Parashar is shaking his head. Are they not going to provide any context for the special ed in terms of how many students, you know, in certain levels of programming or excess cost and that sort of thing? Or is it just the school as a whole?
So it's a school as a whole. If you recall, when we set the preliminary guidelines, we set them at a certain rate. After we set the guidelines, they came in for the presentation. They said that there were a couple students in special ed that they hadn't anticipated, and the cost went up. So what we did by, I think, 200 or 280,000, 300,000. So what we did when we set the final guidelines for CPS is we added that in. So to answer your question, money's fungible, but in general, it's not just special ed that's causing this gap.
Right.
It's, and this is what we had the conversation, both Gail and Bob were there Wednesday. And we had the conversation, I said, I think folks really want to see structurally what changes and options are there. And so far, we haven't seen any, at least in the last 4 years I've been on FinCom. And I think it's about time you come in and tell us why, et cetera. And so it's a structural element. It's not just special ed.
Right. I mean, there's 11 FTE ads this year. So there's a big bump this year in FTEs as well as comp, which goes somewhere between 4 and 5%. That's the driver. Sped's kind of a wild card, but that's the big driver.
11?
11.
And what's the increase in enrollment?
It's not.
There isn't.
It's not. And
Oh, it's
Lois-
going down, I think.
Yeah, Lois is up, yep, Lois.
Yeah, I had a couple of comments. Peggy, I don't have a problem. Democracy's messy. People are entitled to express different opinions. Yeah, unanimity is a good thing, but it's not a goal in and of itself. So I don't have a problem with the FinCom dividing on an important issue if we have strong and differing views. So I just wanted to speak to that. I don't think driving toward unanimity is the endpoint. The endpoint, we each have to bring our individual best judgment to that, and the ideal situation is when we're in agreement, but we aren't always. And I just wanted to remind people, last year, CPS came in over. We went to town meeting with a recommendation of no action on the CPS budget. That's how it read in the original finance report. We were going to propose our own warrant article, I think, or propose an amendment on the floor. I think that was how we were going to do it.
That's correct. Yep.
Amending the CPS article to the guideline number, and then they'd have to figure out how to manage the money within that number. That ended up not happening because we worked out a resolution that was along the lines of what you just suggested, Peggy, which is that the CCHS found some money, and by looking at the two budgets as a whole, this is my recollection, if I'm getting this wrong, somebody correct me, the combined schools came in at guideline. But what that does is it just kicks the can down the road because it doesn't address the institutional structural problem that Parashar is highlighting and that Chris is highlighting, that CPS just keeps growing and growing and growing and adding and adding and adding, and not really addressing the causes of the increases in any meaningful way. There's always going to be unpredictability. SPED, I have learned, can be unpredictable. I get that. But there seems to be a pattern of building in more and more regular, repeat structural increases into the CPS budget, and we just go from there. And so we did it last year. We did what you suggested last year, Peggy. It worked for last year, but obviously it didn't address the issue because here we are again. So I just wanted to make that point.
So what I'd like to do,
Thank you,
Peggy,
Lois.
is,
I think I've got 2 more questions.
so what I'd like to do is after the questions, or maybe I'll give you my sense once the questions are done of where I think we stand, and then maybe we could just go around and give everybody 2 or 3 minutes, just where they stand, given this latest news and the fact that folks will come in. Because I think it's helpful for us to start having these conversations now versus March and April when we've got a whole bunch of public hearings and there's less time to actually talk about this. Don had a question.
Don.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Don in the room first.
Okay, so when we have had the schools in the past, I've felt less than satisfied in the process, in our process, in being able to get to a recommendation. And so I went looking around for some objective data and found that the Massachusetts Department of Elementary and Secondary Education has a wonderful consolidated spreadsheet of all the school budgets in the entire state and the standardized test scores. It's just really simplified and fantastic. And I spent about, I don't know, maybe 2 hours with it and put together a list of the comparable communities to our high school. And one of the reasons I did this is that I was one of the data points, perhaps, that Parashar is referencing, when a realtor had mentioned to me that our schools are not competitive and our taxes are higher. So we're losing out as a community to other communities. So I took a look and put together our sort of bordering towns, their high schools, and found that our median test scores are in the middle. So of the 9 communities, 4 are higher and 4 are lower. Our teacher to one, the way they put this is teachers to 100 students. Our ratio of teachers to 100 students is very low. But our expenditure per pupil is the second highest. Now, Weston is off the charts. They're spending $29,000 per student, but we're next.
Is Weston number 1?
In this data set, I didn't look statewide, but
No, I mean
within,
in the scores of the students.
No, they're not.
Okay.
They're not. But we have 7.5 teachers per 100 students. They have over 10. So they have a third more teachers per 100 students. And we are the highest in the median
Are
salaries.
you talking, just to clarify?
Yeah.
CPS or the region?
Oh, this was the high school.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. The data is there for the other schools,
Yeah, I know.
but it'll take a
It
lot more
gets
work to get at
complicated
it.
when you have a region, yeah.
Yeah. And I thought maybe if I share this with the committee, we'll be better educated before we meet with the schools and better prepared to ask questions. Is that?
You can't do it directly. You have to go through somebody else, right? You have to go through, is it you, Gail? Okay.
can send it
You
to
have
me.
to send it to Gail.
Very good. I'll do that.
Or Bob, yeah.
Or Bob.
Yep. And what I would love to do then is take
Definitely, Gail.
these budgets.
In case
gave
Bob
you
doesn't
that
check his
eye, right?
emails.
More reliable.
These are operating budgets. They don't include the capital component. And perhaps we can, at the same time, update our taxes relative to their tax rates, and we'll better understand where we are as a community. to either put the lie to or validate what we're hearing from the residential brokers.
Would you also send the link to the state information on all the schools?
Yeah, no, that's what I'm referring to. Yeah.
Oh, all right. Oh, I thought this was your own chart.
Well, this is a Excel spreadsheet with many tabs, and I created 2 additional tabs, one to compare the high schools
All right.
and one to compare the elementary and middle.
Does that have teacher salary as well?
Yes.
That chart?
Yeah. And ours is the highest in our peer community. But it seems as though we're paying more per teacher, but we also are asking those teachers to teach more students than other schools.
So on the
Because we have a lower teacher.
yeah,
to student
okay,
ratio.
on the taxes, obviously that's complicated because the tax rate is one metric. The average, the median home valuation is the other metric. So our tax rate just went down.
Mhm.
But the average tax bill didn't go down. It
Right.
stayed the same until town meeting, when of course it's gonna go up. And, you know, the tax bill, it is definitely complicated. We are in a tough situation having, you know, I know that the town we usually get compared to is Acton, Boxborough. And, you know, the per pupil is cheaper, the taxes are much less expensive. They've got a lot of commercial development, and they got all their schools done with MSBA funding. So now that we have the middle school all by our onesies, I mean, we're not going to catch up to any of these towns. It's just not going to happen on the tax bill because it's a huge expense.
So since you mentioned Acton, Boxborough, at the high school level, their standardized test scores are higher than
I know.
Concord. And they spend $17,610 per student. This is 2021 data. 17.6, where we spend 21,400. Well,
I've been listening to that metric for 20 years.
Oh,
It's
you have?
always Acton, Boxborough.
well, Lexington as well.
yeah.
They're spending 18,000 per student, and they're 21. Yeah.
So I think Eric's got a question.
Eric,
I just want to say I agree with Lois's recollection of what happened last year. And I was thinking about this and went in and took a look at our minutes, and I was just struck by, I agree that this is like a structural defect. This is a systemic thing because it seems to keep happening. And I went in and looked at the dollar amounts, and it shrank a bit over time as town meeting approached. But the final delta, when we took our votes on the articles for town meeting, was 312,000 last year. That's the delta between our guideline and the budget. This is almost double that. So it's a systemic structural issue, but it's getting even worse. It's deteriorating.
Yeah, so let me just share my thoughts, and love to hear everybody else's for a few minutes. So I too was shocked. Now, you know, on top of the fact that we've got the 110, potentially 1.8, to hear the 700,000 overage, particularly since the last 4 or 5 years, we've given more to the schools than we've to the town. It feels, from my perspective, we've got to accommodate. They've got to accommodate kind of where we are in the overall budget situation. The other element is the teachers' contracts are up at the end of fiscal year 2024.
2024?
2024. So we're going to be entering into negotiations next year. And I think, you know, from a negotiation perspective, giving them the extra 700,000 right now just seems to be the wrong message to spend, particularly if the teacher salaries are much higher than the surrounding towns. Now, I am all open and would like to see the data and the story that Lori is going to come in and share with us. Because the one thing that did surprise me is I looked at the budget, the gross spending for the schools of the last 4 to 5 years, and basically they've been the low point was 2.3% from 21 to 2022. The others are 3.9, 3.0, 3.5, but this year it was 5%. They're asking increase.
Yeah.
So
Does the head count?
whatever, and we have to better understand what's going on and why, right? And so I was a little taken back because I actually thought the rate of increases would be higher than that, but they're relatively kind of modest and moderate. So I'd like to better understand what's driving the 5 now, because there are implications in the future. And then, of course, the outcomes data is also important to understand. So I'm all in favor of them coming in. Maybe I change my mind, maybe I don't, but I'll withhold judgment until I see the data. But at this point, I'm not inclined to change the guideline number. And I would rather go to town meeting, explain our position, and again, provide all the facts to the residents and let the residents, make up their mind and vote one way or the other. Should we go around the room? Do you want to start?
I welcome any comments. I sort of feel like I'd rather hear from the school committee before,
Yep.
or a hearing, or, not just sort of looking at a flat number.
Fair enough.
I totally appreciate your comment about, the upcoming union negotiation, which is always fun. But I am feeling sort of like I don't have more information at this time.
Mhm.
So, but I'm happy to see what other folks think.
Same with myself. I'd like to hear why. 11 sounds high, and again, exactly why. So I would prefer until we get there.
Could whoever's speaking speak into the mic? I can't hear.
I agree with all their comments, and I will defer judgment until we meet with them.
That's Greg.
That's correct. Yes.
Whenever the date is set, I would like you also to invite, if possible, the school committee members for both the regional and the town.
So hold that question, because it's a process question we should decide once we talk about some dates. Right?
A process question?
Yeah, whether we want.
Whether we
everybody-
want
yeah,
that?
Absolutely,
Gotcha.
yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. In terms of the other information, yes, I would like to hold any comment on our percentage increase until after we talk with them.
So I agree as well, Parashar, with your approach, and Dee, with your comment as well, that I think we should meet with the other boards. And I'd like to be, in addition to here's what we request, I'd like some explanation of why it costs us 14% more per student than Lexington and 22% more per student than Acton-Boxborough, and yet our standardized test results are below theirs.
Is there, and I should maybe know this, but where can we learn more about those 11 FTE and all the other elements of this?
Yeah, so, well, they gave us a presentation, so if you go back in the,
Okay.
but there's more, because when the school committee actually signed off on it, which I think was in December, that's when they had the final budget. So if you go to the school committee video, and I don't remember the date, but I'm going to say it was mid-December. If you look for a mid-December video, you will see the presentation by their CFO on both CPS and the high school.
I will say it's been difficult to stay on top of this budget and guidelines while rushing toward the special town meeting. So, I mean, we've just had 2 layers, and I think the special town meeting has sort of overwhelmed us. So some of these presentations and this kind of information is, it's available, but it's, there's only so many hours in the day. So, John?
I think it's better to defer, but I will comment that 3% isn't outrageous over the past few years, and so I don't think we should be up in arms over that. Structural issues within a budget, I think you have to define that, because it's saying there's something in there that we can specifically point to and say, here is an issue and we can address it, versus just, I think, throwing that out there. I'd love to hear what is structural in nature with those expenses, because then we can actually address it.
Yeah, so I'm happy to hear what they have to say. I watched the presentation, so I saw what they said to the school committee, so I think I know and they have some comps in there, they have some benchmarking stuff in there. But in any event, I'm happy to hear what they have to say. The problem for me, and I think it's a problem for this committee, is no matter what they have to say, you're at 3.65
Already.
already. There's no room to go. We're way above where we want to be, right? So that's the problem. So if you're going to agree to something else on the schools, then something else has to come down. So that's the problem. So.
Good point.
Anyone online? We got Ray.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Shresh.
Well, one thing I would like to say is the part that is the CCHS is coming in on the guidelines. There should be some movement over there. If I'm telling somebody this is your guideline and they say we make it, means they might have some movement, and the two systems almost are, sort of together. So I think that should be a consideration given and see what they have to say about that. How they can make it, work between the two, the high school and the CPS.
Online, we have Ray.
Yes, I agree with Parashar recommendation and Christine's concerns, and if we take the middle school construction and the increase in the budget, I think we have a big impact on property taxes, and that will tend to drive, and Parashar mentioned about real estate agents in town feeling some impact. I think that'll tend to drive the demographics in Concord away from senior people and people who, want to buy I'm thinking of affordable housing, basically. I'm thinking in affordable housing context. This is a trend in the wrong direction. We're putting money into affordable housing, but we're also raising taxes to the point where people can't stay or can't afford to buy a house in Concord, then I think the budget is working at odds with the stated intention of the residents to support affordable housing. I'm not sure that's very clear, is it? I can work on that.
I think it was pretty clear.
I do
Okay.
have more comments.
Wait.
Two others,
Oh.
Lois and Eric.
No, I have nothing further.
Eric?
I'm happy to hear what they have to say.
Dee?
I have a concern about robbing Peter to pay Paul, taking money out of the high school to put it into the middle school, because we're talking about different strategies for those, for the students at those different levels. So I'm not sure that we'd be able to achieve that. And if it is truly the cost in the middle schools, then we should focus on that. They may want to suggest that themselves, that we could maybe modify the high school, but I'm not sure that I'd like to see that happen. It can, but I'm not sure that I'd be in agreement with that.
Okay. Anything further on guidelines? You said
Yes,
you
the
wanted to-
question is the date and who do we invite, right? So we discussed some potential dates and I want to see what the committee thinks about them. The week of February 13th seemed to make the most sense, because otherwise you're getting into the week of March 6th, and then all those hearings are starting for us.
Yeah.
So my recommendation is we try to aim for the week of the 13th. The week of the 13th, it gives us ample opportunity to hear what they have to say, absorb it, sleep on it a week or two. We can even discuss it ourselves at the next meeting, right on the 28th as well.
So this would be a single item
This would be
meeting?
a single item meeting.
Okay.
The CPS comes in, definitely Lori in the two chairs, but if we want to invite the whole committee, I told Alexa, I'm happy to have the whole committee. I mean, if they got to post something, that's their issue, but I think their preference is to have the whole committee, so I'm happy to have the whole committee come in.
We have plenty of room.
Yeah. And they said they would make themselves available, is what I heard. Is that right? Did I leave anything out of the discussion yesterday?
I just want to add that there is a special election that week, and the town clerk strongly prefers you not meet on that day. That's on Thursday.
On Thursday?
It's the 16th.
Oh,
The election's on the
Election.
16th?
Yes.
Yeah.
No, I was looking for that prior to
I
this
asked her to
meeting.
look online and
I
put
couldn't
it there
find
for
it
you.
It's not on
online.
the calendar, yeah.
Couldn't find it anywhere.
The
Under
vote?
the clerk,
the
under
election.
the town, under
It's not-
elections.
It is the 16th.
No, but it's not on the town website in a
Wow.
prominent place.
Wow.
It's too far away.
It should be a
It's-
blinking light.
It's not there. I mean, I really don't think it is. The 16th is the election.
Does Wednesday? We could do it over drinks on Friday.
I can't be there on Wednesday. I have another commitment, but if there's enough other people, it doesn't matter. Is Tuesday a possibility?
I think
Tuesday's possible.
Tuesday, the 15th is.
I have to tell you, Tuesday is Valentine's Day.
Yeah, not Tuesday, not the 14th.
Oh,
Well, loved ones can come with to the hearing.
Wednesday, the.
Wednesday is the 15th.
Right, no.
Yeah, we're having it on the 14th, so you don't have to get flowers, you don't have to, you don't have to get a cake.
Yeah.
attorney.
Sadly, I'm free on Valentine's Day. It's the 15th, it's the next day when I'm busy. But
Well, we have Monday, the 13th?
Yeah, what's wrong with the 13th?
Well, nothing wrong with the 13th.
That's fine.
We want to do 13th?
13 is fine.
Oh, wait.
Do
the
that day,
sel-
but that's okay. It's my daughter's birthday.
Oh, it's
She's
your
7,
daughter's
so I can't miss, I can't do it.
No.
Select board might have a meeting, but that might be, I know, it doesn't matter. It's just for us, so.
I don't care.
The select board meets on that day.
On the 13th?
Mondays.
Why not Valentine's Day then?
Did we, what, I thought Wednesday, the 15th was, sounded pretty
Can't
good.
make the
That's okay.
15th.
Lois.
I can't make,
Lois, John can't. Can we do it the week of the 6th?
March 6th?
No, February 6th.
I mean, I wanted to give them a little bit of time to prepare, because I asked for a good amount of data for us.
Well, can we talk about that week and see if there are
Let's do that,
days?
let's do this. Let me propose the Thursday that week. What would that be?
The 9th.
The 9th, and if that doesn't work, the fallback would be the 13th. Or that Wednesday, I'm sorry.
15th? Those sound like good dates. Not February 9th or 15th.
Okay. And where do you want to hold it?
Probably down the hall, a bigger
In
room.
the
The
big
bigger
room?
room, yeah, because the Board of Assessors has, I think, this room on the 9th.
I'll have to look
I
and see.
watched that one too, at 6:30, right?
Yes.
Okay.
That's it. Now I can turn it back over to you.
Okay,
Okay.
9th and the
Good
13th.
night.
Good.
You leaving?
Yeah.
No.
The 9th and the 15th.
Can you just look at
Don't
the
leave me.
election
now.
stuff? No, I
The
don't.
next, okay, so that's a guideline budget
It's probably fine.
update.
The 15th's getting close to the election.
And we really appreciate the town coming in at guideline. Thank you, Gail. Thank you for coming in at guideline.
Anything for you?
If you want to see if you can wiggle some money out of there, I'll appreciate it.
And thanks, Parashar, for following up on this and trying to arrange
I
it.
was thinking it.
Capital planning update, just very briefly, Parashar and I met with Bob and Gail and Mary this morning to just kind of review the capital planning process for Tier 1, which is small stuff that we don't borrow for, Tier 2, which is slightly bigger that we do borrow for, and mainly those two levels, and talking about whether we should borrow, whether should we pay as we go. We historically borrowed about 5% of the budget every year. Is that a good way to put it? Something like that. So I don't have much else to say, except that, there's an ongoing discussion with the select board and finance staff on budget planning for smaller capital items. You want to add anything to that, or?
Nope, I think that's perfect.
Stormwater fund, I think we already covered. Bob, do you have anything
Yeah, nope.
else to add to that? So that's not on the warrant this year. I am mistaken. I thought it was the new enterprise fund that was going to show up on the warrant, but it did not. ARPA plan, I will ask maybe Gail to give us a view. So we do have ARPA money, and it's, the process, my understanding is that it's the select board and the town finance department are in charge of
And town
determining.
manager through
Hmm?
select board. So we did include
You
when
need a
we
microphone.
came. I don't have a microphone. Here's my outside voice. So in the packet that we had done when we were coming here for the guideline presentations, we had included a spreadsheet of the ARPA funding, so nothing has changed to date on that. And I know that there'll be scheduled meetings to go back to the select board on status of spending, and we will obviously come back here as well as we move throughout.
Can I ask a question on one of the items on there, Gail? So, and that may have been considered perhaps before the CMLP were coming forward with the 13 million, but there's $500,000, I think, in the 2023 ARPA for the middle school solar. Is that going to be spent? What is that for? Anybody know?
I can go back, I can look into that one.
I think
About
it
the
might have been
23.
tagged well before they,
I
so
think
you
it
might
was.
not, you might have
Yeah.
some money rolling around there.
Back, I brought forth the 24
Yeah.
items.
Okay.
I was into 24 mode based upon the budget update, so I can go back, I can look into that.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. And any kind of update on free cash?
So the update on free cash is we do have an updated number, which is slightly above where it was when we reported it earlier, so that's always a good update. The estimated free cash, which we are submitting to the DOR to be certified, is $7,588,000, which is up slightly from the $7,338,000 we had presented in December. So that's as we went through closing the books, scrubbing all the balances, there's always shifts as we're doing it. So the preliminary number back in October was pre-close and scrubbing the numbers, so it has improved slightly from what we presented.
What is that in terms of a percent?
I brought the,
You're spending the budget 120-ish million, so it's close to
7 million over
6%.
there, yeah.
Plus what?
Close to 6.
Yeah.
So it's still near the bottom.
yeah.
And any projections on where free cash will be at the end of the year? Any thoughts on, the uses now that have come through the warrant?
Not yet, and we're also in the process of looking, we'll be updating all of the projections to see where current year revenue was against
Right.
what we had
Right.
projected. And once we have all of the final articles, we'll look through that too, to plot those against where we are and then how we're trending revenue-wise this year.
So when would that be, do you think, Gail, we'd have that?
That is probably, I believe we would be targeting to have those as we're going through the public hearings.
Okay,
So now
so
that
sometime
we've
in
sort of
March.
finished special town meeting in this process, we're diving into the current year.
Okay,
Well, to be able to provide updates.
okay.
So does that include the stabilization fund of 750,000?
This is as of July 1st, 2022 for the current year, so it doesn't include spend in the warrant that will be coming out.
Okay, so the 750 would be for the next year, and that would be part of the above 5%, or, yeah, 5%.
It would be
It
using.
would be using
Yeah.
the
Could be
7.5.
Could be used,
that we
some
have, yes.
above,
Okay.
yeah. But then they'll also look to see what revenue versus expenses was for the year. There could be potential, some more coming.
Right,
You know.
right.
So as we go through, if we have any savings on expenses, that would help, and if revenue comes in higher than projected.
Any difference in revenue projections for '24? Has anything kind of fallen out either on new growth or anything else?
No,
No.
nothing yet.
Same assumptions as we've been using.
Same
since
assumptions
the
we
fall.
had in the guidelines.
So just to go back to the guidelines, for the next meeting, can we just have a simple table that shows what the impact on property taxes was under the approved guideline, and then what it would be if we gave an extra 583 without taking it from somewhere else. Just so that we've got numbers in our heads as we think about weighing the pros and cons.
It'll be $5.
Sorry?
It'll be $5 because the 7 million was $73. 500,000 probably $5.
I'm wondering
Is that
if our-
oversimplifying?
Probably. I really liked it, but I think one was borrowed over 30 years.
Yeah.
Yeah,
exactly.
right, it
Yeah,
depends on,
let's just have the numbers and that way we've got it.
Yeah, I don't remember what the debt service on the 7.2 million was, but I think 500 is bigger than the 7.2 million.
it's about 7 million, somewhere 7, 8 million in total for the
That would
debt
be
service.
a good number to have.
Yes, two numbers to have, two
Absolutely,
numbers.
yeah. Personnel classification and compensation study update. You know, I just realized we don't have a liaison to that committee. Probably because it's usually not a budget item, but this year with the study going on, you know, it is something I think we should have on our list of things to worry about.
Don't we have enough?
Couldn't we invite them in?
Never, never.
Second that one.
It's,
Invite them in?
yeah,
So where are they in terms of completing that
Still
study?
in-
Is
It's
that,
still
in
in
the
the,
process.
yeah, they're
Okay.
still working through the process.
didn't they
aiming-
issue their report? No?
They were aiming for January, December, January, and I think now they're aiming for June.
Oh, I thought they had issued their report. Maybe it was a draft that I saw.
You know, Carrie had to make some guesses and assumptions based on their work so far and put it in the budget for FY24. So there is money in the budget to
Oh,
accommodate the findings without knowing exactly what the findings
oh,
are.
there's two different things. So are you talking about the personnel board?
I think so.
yes.
And you're talking about the comp study? Is that being,
It's being done by the personnel
is it done by the, okay, I didn't realize they were the ones doing it. Okay.
So they do provide updates to the personnel board when they meet, and they don't have final, it has not been finalized. They're still going through the classification and the comps.
So we,
Okay, so we can not worry about that until after town meeting, which anything we can
yeah,
postpone is
Yeah.
fine.
Right.
But Bob and Gail, if you could keep that on the list to bring it up for our agenda when the right time comes. Okay, minutes. October 27th, 2022.
Make a motion to approve the minutes.
Wait a minute.
Let's get all the minutes on the table and do the roll call at once.
Yeah, well, this is, Chris read them carefully and suggested some changes for some of them. So we can review the changes now, or we can make some changes and resubmit. I think some of them were in the nature of corrections, but a couple were more substantive. So how do you want to handle this?
Are there, just a minute, Ray. So we have October 27th, November 10th, November 21st, January 19th.
All right, so let's call up each set and I can read you the changes and then we can make a motion to approve the minutes as revised.
As amended,
Does that
okay.
work for people?
Ray had his
Okay.
hand up. Ray?
Yeah, as the scribe on the October 27th, Chris's edits were very helpful, improved accuracy, and pointed out that I wasn't consistent in using, Ms. or Mr. and last names. I would like to make those changes and resubmit for the next meeting.
Sure.
There's a significant number of changes.
Or I could just review, or if you feel that way, Ray, then let's just resubmit the October 27th minutes at the next meeting. If you'd like to do that. All right,
be
so
happy to do
why don't we
that.
defer approval of the October 27th minutes to the next meeting? Do you want to look at the October 21st minutes,
November,
set of
November
minutes.
21st.
November
Now,
21st,
Let
I
me,
think.
let me just
Oh,
ask.
November 21st, I'm sorry.
Let me ask the sense of the board. Would we rather have Lois circulate a set of redlined minutes? Or do we want to get these up and posted?
I think, I think we can get them done today.
Okay,
I'm,
Let's do
okay.
it. It's only
All right,
8.
so, yeah, I mean, it's only 8. By our standards, we barely warmed up.
Got hours. We got hours to go. Okay.
No, we don't. We have minutes to go. All right, so we're going to wait on we're going to let Ray resubmit the October 27th minutes. So we're going to defer approving those. Is that what we decided?
No, here's a suggestion. If you can just tell us what the major editorial changes are, I don't care.
Right, I will take you through them. Look now at the October 27th minutes, the October 27th minutes.
Okay.
That's fine.
Chris, do you want to do it? Or I have them in front of me. I can do it, whatever,
Yeah, no,
however everybody.
Basically, the October, nothing that I submitted, I thought was, terribly different in terms of what was there.
No,
but there were
it's
a few
not.
things that were
It's just-
corrections, or I think more accurately stated. So for instance, somebody had, when you spoke about the $300 in taxes, but they didn't have it compared to the right thing. So I just corrected it. So I think you read them both, all of them. So I don't think there's any real changes in substance in anything that I did.
I don't think so. There's enough change
I
in
would
language.
say
It isn't just
accept
correcting
as amended if
grammatical
you're comfortable
errors.
with the former chair's edits. Okay.
Okay, so.
Okay, well, I'm comfortable with,
It's move all of them as amended and then have a roll call vote.
I think John had a question, right?
Done.
Yeah.
Do you want to get the microphone?
I mean, I probably shouldn't even be on microphone, but my name is spelled differently throughout all these.
Okay.
Doesn't really bother me because I know my name, but if there's like a procedural thing, I don't know if you want to be consistent.
You might have your name right.
Is it correct on your nameplate?
It is.
Okay.
all right, so what we will do is, I will get rid of this call. And what we will do is, John, the minutes as amended will spell your name right in each instance in which your name occurs. So thank you for that correction. I think the only substantial changes that Chris made that are other than grammatical or style changes have to do with some language changes that she made through the minutes of the October 27th meeting. And very quickly, she clarified that the schedule, she actually, something? She clarified that the middle school borrowing interest rate is anticipated to increase from 3.75% as estimated in January 22 to 5%. I will represent to the committee that Chris's changes improved the accuracy of the minutes, but did not make any substantial changes in the minutes as drafted. So if people will take my representation, we can vote to adopt the minutes as amended. They are not substantial changes. They are clarifications and improvements.
Make a motion to adopt the minutes as amended by Chris.
Before I second it, can I add that, or do I have to amend it? I want to make sure that all of we specify all the dates of the minutes that this is going to take place.
Yeah, the motion.
Okay.
This is October.
We don't know what you're.
They're the minutes that are listed in the agenda. So we are approving the minutes of
Thank you.
October 27, 2022, November 10th, 2022, November 21st, 2022, and the minutes from January 19th, 2023, Chris didn't make any changes in. So those are as you have already seen them.
I did not. Lois did, the clerk did.
That's what I meant.
Good minute taker.
That's what I meant. Those
Okay,
dates.
so those are the 4 sets of minutes that we will be approving.
Need a second?
Second.
D, seconds. And a roll call vote.
You can. Oh, it's right on the phone.
Do we need a roll call
You
vote?
do, because we got people on Zoom.
Okay, Ray,
Yes.
Suresh,
Yes.
Peggy, yes. Kathy, absent. Eric,
Yes.
John,
Yes.
Greg,
Staying.
abstain. Amrith, absent. Dawn,
Yes.
Lindsay,
Yes.
Dee,
Yes.
Parashar,
Yes.
Christine,
Yes.
Brian is absent. Lois.
Yes.
Woohoo!
Right.
Now,
And I would just like to inform the committee that that means we are almost completely caught up for the first time in years. We are
Yay.
right at the cusp of being caught up.
I did notice, while we have voted on many minutes from last summer, they're still not posted on our website. So let's get them approved and posted.
Thank you, Lois.
Lois, great job.
Absolutely.
Yes, thank you.
Look, I think
Thank
we're
you.
doing a great job self-scribing these meetings and getting them done. We fell way behind last year because we lost staff and didn't make up for it by ourselves. So
Yeah,
excellent.
we had a lot to make up, but we have essentially. And
I think there's one
That's good.
left. Is that correct?
so
Anyway,
there's one set of minutes that yes, there's basically one missing set of minutes. And I
And
know
that-
that Eric is going to get those to me very soon.
Yeah, that's on me. It's from the double header back on November 17th. They're almost done. They're almost ready, Lois. I'll have them to you in time for the next meeting.
That's great. And I'll turn them but maybe I'll let Chris take a look at them.
Thank you, Chris.
any other topics?
Yes, the facility usage policies, right?
Oh, yes.
So you want me to just make the
Sure.
introduction?
Yep.
So I think we noticed last year Minuteman has a nice schedule that they used to charge outside groups for usage of their facilities. And I asked for follow-up information. I just circulated around to people tonight. Sorry about that. But in essence, they are taking in more money than expenses, which is good, right? They've got a surplus. So my thought is, should we consider making sure nudging, urging the schools, the towns to do something similar? And so towards that end, I think Bob basically and Gail are going to round up the existing policies for the schools and the towns and the BD Center to see what they're charging outside groups, what the income and the expenses have been, and kind of see where they are. And also then let us enable conversations with each of those groups to make sure that the facilities are being charged appropriately for outside use. So this is more of a placeholder.
Yep.
So that once we get the information back from all the groups, we can sit down and have a conversation, compare and contrast, and see what the scoop is. So that's what that is. Yeah.
Great idea. One question, is the recreation department included in this?
Yes, they will be. Yep, they're gonna include. When I said town, that's what I meant. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. So more to come. We've got an expanded gym. We've got a bigger auditorium. We ought to make sure that the schools benefit from
Community
it.
asked for.
Really?
That
Yeah.
constituents ask for, and we ought to make sure that folks are being charged appropriately. The going rate,
I would put the white fields up on that too.
whatever.
Well, the fields are in.
First, we've got to see what the policies are.
They're
We
in the
don't
rec.
know what the policies currently are.
The fields are under the rec, I think.
We'll find
not
out.
sure.
We'll find
I'm not
out.
sure.
We're gonna get the
They're on
policies.
school property.
We'll get the policies. We'll find out, and then we'll have more information for conversation.
And I would ask everyone on this committee to let me know if there's anything you want on a future agenda, because, I'm just kind of scratching my head and putting things on here, but I'm certainly open to any other agenda items that folks want.
I think we just have to go through get ready for the hearings, make sure if there's something you need, if you have questions, that's what we did last year, right? If you have a piece of data you want before you can vote on something, you need to let Peggy know so we can get it or get the person in here. So just be cognizant of that as we go through the warrant articles.
Bob?
You're also scheduled to meet on the 23rd. The reason that didn't work for the school update is that school vacation.
Right.
But you mentioned tonight that you'd like to have CPC and the light department in. Would that be a good date for those?
Yeah.
I'd rather-
Sure.
rather earlier.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah,
That'd be great.
23rd of
It's a
February.
great idea.
Our regular meeting.
Yeah, it's a regular meeting. We can do
Yeah, that's a great idea.
CPC and who?
the light plant,
The light plan.
Light plant.
Rhinefelds. So
Great.
who invites them?
We happen to be seeing the light plant tomorrow for a budget presentation, so we'll make sure they know.
And if you want me to, I can reach out to Brian myself and just let him know,
Yeah.
here's what we're probably going to talk about. Okay?
That's great.
And lastly, we still have to work on a location, depending on whether you meet the 9th or the 15th. When it's close to the election, this building is not a good idea.
That room won't be available because we'll be doing setup for the election, so I won't be able to allow people into the hearing.
Is there an auditorium we can meet in?
I'm sure we can find it.
Just in order to have it here, the night before an election is a little bit tricky with the setups of
We meet
everything.
where the school committee meets, which is.
We're not elect, that,
Meet
we're
in the
just,
library, yeah.
this is just the
Meet the library.
Yeah,
special
library.
election on the ballot follow-up, right?
Oh. Oh, so we,
It's not the
It's the
town
thir-
election. It's not the selectmen
Right.
elect.
Correct.
No, that's in March.
Yeah,
so February 13th is not a good day?
If we were thinking the 15th with the election on the 16th, we just have to
couldn't
be
meet in this
careful
building.
of space because with tabulation and other stuff getting set up, it gets a little bit, not that it's,
I sent out an email. You guys are copied on it. So hopefully they'll respond back in the next day or two.
then we can find a location.
all right.
Make a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All right. Thank you, everyone.
8:30, pretty good for a long.
Public comments? Do you want public
Oh, yeah.
comments?
Sorry,
Do you have to
Carlin,
adjourn?
Mary, Matt,
What was the question?
public comments. Oh, Carlin,
Public,
sorry.
Carlin.
Carlin Reed, 83 Woods End. I'm good. I'll catch the first part of this meeting. I'm glad that you're going to have the light board come in because I think that's going to be an important conversation. Thanks.
Thanks, Carlin.
Okay, that's it.
All right. 8:30.
Yeah.
Oh, well, we're done because I left the meeting.
Wow. Good night, everyone.
Everybody, enjoy.